Hello, YouTube. The 1990s were the days when old Russian women, along with sauerkraut and vodka, could sell live grenades. Despite all the efforts of law enforcement agencies, weapons illegally entered the markets and were available basically to everyone. It was not difficult to buy a pistol and ammunition. After the collapse of the USSR, the number of criminal groups or gangs began to grow, which caused a lot of fear in society. To achieve their criminal goals, they used everything they could scare, maim, and kill the population with. What kind of weapon the Russian population used to see in the hands of the bratki, or criminals, from the dashing 90s, as the period was called in Russian. Лихие 90-е. First of all, these are domestic weapons that could be obtained from the police or the army. Kalashnikov assault rifles, hunting and pump action rifles, Makarov pistols, and Tula Tokarevs. However, in the galaxy of weapons most in demand by criminals at that time, at least one imported model stood out, the Agram 2000 submachine gun. What was it like and where did it come from? Just remember, at least 60 contract killings were attributed to the use of the Agram 2000 submachine gun in the 1990s. With a high degree of confidence, we can say that this is the bloodiest sample of imported weapons used by Russian organized crime in those troubled years. Well, the submachine gun came to Russia from Croatia, where it was created in the year 1990, as far as I can tell from my research. As it is easy to guess, this weapon was created at the very beginning of the civil war in Yugoslavia. It was mainly used by all kinds of guerrilla, insurgent, nationalist, and terrorist groups. So this video is about this family of submachine guns Agram, the first representative of which was developed in early 1990s, and the second, Agram 2000, earned the title of the submachine gun of Russian mafiosi. So, in the beginning of 1990s, the newly formed Croatia was in dire need of weapons, and a number of Croats knowledgeable in weapons rushed to help their army by creating a whole group of curious small arms samples, from artisan garage creations to more or less similar to the products of something that an industrial enterprise would come up with. Among these creations was Mirko Vugrek, who lived near Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, and is said to have assembled his submachine gun in 1990 and offered it in, I think, about 1991 to the Croatian army, and even began small-scale production in a small workshop owned by him. The weapons were supplied to Croatian militias and law enforcement officers. With the name for this weapon, Mirko Vugrek had no issues to come up with. Agram is the old German name of Zagreb. The weapon was named Agram 1995. It is worth noting that also, at the same time, Mirko Vugrek offered the Croatian army a pistol of his own design, copied from the Czech CZ-85. It is worth noting that the use of magazines from the Uzi submachine guns, apparently a large number of these magazines, as well as documentation for the Uzi submachine gun, were provided to the Croats by the Germans. Hearsay, but that's what people say. So, and for his Agram, also the designer, as people say, was inspired by the Italian Beretta RM-12 submachine gun, but Agram was shorter and lighter. The submachine gun was equipped with a primitive wire butt, preserved, this is translating from Russian, so if I miss identify a term. I'll look it up. Preserved on some early Agram 2000 models. So it had a straight box magazine, no hand guard. Now, the Agram 2000 submachine gun. According to open sources, this model appeared a little later, sometime around 1993, and was a modified version of the first prototype. The weapon received a curved magazine. As they say, the first Agram had problems with fitting cartridges, and a plastic front handle, which gave it a characteristically recognizable appearance. On both sides, there was a letter V and the inscription Agram 2000. The letter V was also on the pistol grip. The automation of the system was powered by the recoil energy of the free shutter. The controls were on the left, the cocking handle and 3-position switch for selecting the firing mode, combined with the fuse. The shooting was conducted with a closed shutter. The sighting devices consisted of an adjustable protected front sight and a 2-position rear sight with a slot designed for 50 and 150 meters. A curious feature of this system was that it was adapted for the use of a silencer. The barrel under the perforated casing had a thread for screwing the device and holes for releasing powder gases. At the same time, the designer also made sure that the shooter could easily turn a specialized submachine gun into a regular one. He could remove the silencer and screw a special tube onto the barrel, which would close the holes for the release of powder gases. There were flame arrestor cutouts on the front edge of the tube. The power was supplied from a curved double-row magazines with a double feed of their own design, a design for 15, 22, or 32 9 by 19 millimeter parabellum cartridges. The first samples had a wire butt, but the series included weapons without that butt. To disassemble the weapon, it was necessary to remove the pin, after which the upper part, the barrel with the receiver, was separated from the lower part, the fire control group. Well, the Croatian military abandoned the Agram 2000, as they say. The magazines were still not very reliable, but the main reason was the return spring flying out after unscrewing the back of the barrel, which cost a lot of work to put in place. A little later, another model appeared, the Agram 2002, which was smaller than the Agram 2000, had a plastic lower part of the receiver, including handles, and retained the ability to install a silencer on a perforated barrel and an appropriate tube to close the holes if shooting without a silencer was intended. Inside, Agram 2002 was noticeably different from its predecessor. In addition, the weapon received a more elegant appearance. A direct magazine based on the Uzi magazine, a button for its pistol type extraction. It had straight box magazine, adjustable sight, reshaped plastic handguard. However, the submachine gun has found other admirers. From among the representatives of organized crime, after the Croatian army abandoned the submachine gun, homegrown gunsmiths continued to produce the system and found eager buyers on the black market. As they say, representatives of Russian criminal groups were among the first, which is why the weapon got its informal name, Russian Mafia submachine gun. These submachine guns poured into Russia and Ukraine straight from the battlefields of the civil war in Yugoslavia. Their submachine guns were produced on non-professional equipment, like I said, from available materials, often in artisan workshops. In fact, the weapon was the result of the so-called folk art. Besides the fact that all this made it terribly cheap and affordable, there was another important circumstance, namely the fact that the agram produced in wartime conditions were not fired at all for the Interior Ministry's bullet collection and did not have markings, which made them a real ghost weapon and an excellent choice for those who wanted to commit killings. Therefore, from 1995 to 2012, a whole wave of high-profile crimes, contract killings, swept through Russia and Ukraine, in which the killers used this particular Croatian submachine gun. Here are just a few examples. 1996, the murder of People's Deputy of Ukraine, Yevhen Sherban, in Donetsk. Then in 1998, murder of the Russian deputy Galina Starovoitova in St. Petersburg. In 2000, triple murder at the Astoria Hotel in St. Petersburg. 2001, murder of Oblonsky, deputy prefect of the Zelenograd district of Moscow. And in 2005, there was a shootout at the Yellow Submarine restaurant in Moscow. Well, in Croatia, nothing good came from this weapon. In 2006, a search was conducted in Vugrek's workshop, after which Mirko himself, who was already 80 years old by that time, suffered a heart attack and died. And his son Ivan was convicted of illegal possession of weapons. In 2013, Ivan, who was released after his first prison term, was arrested again, and for the same. The exact number of submachine guns produced is unknown. I read comments of Russians that are useful to share. In the mid-1990s, one man served in the Moscow police force, and at that time there was an attempt on the lives of two Georgians. And on the street they found magazines lying about from Agram 2000. In the late 1990s, early 2000s, the Agram submachine guns were purchased by Russia and was in the service of the FSB, the new KGB, and some other law enforcement agencies, because there was a shortage of compact submachine guns in the country. But in reality, there were no purchases, but confiscations from the criminals and subsequent usage by the law enforcement. People in the know say in the open internet sources that the popularity among criminals in Russia was ensured primarily by a low price. By analogy with the American Intratec DC-9 blowback-operated semi-automatic pistols. At the same time, the Agram 2002 was technically more advanced, they say, than the Tech 9. Agram was good for its simplicity, but it is rarely so that things are cheap and good. Apparently, it didn't always work out. Now, the last I heard was that in 2022, Ukrainian law enforcement agencies confiscated Agram submachine guns from local criminals and turned them over to the Territorial Defense Forces to be used in the Battle of Kiev. But I don't know that for certain. So that's what I wanted to let you know today. I will continue bringing forth stories about such weapons in Russia, older types of guns, historical and modern. But I did want to talk about this Croatian submachine gun quite in favor among certain circles in the former Soviet Union. I want to thank you for your attention to my work. And if you can support me, you will find the links on how to do it in the description to this video. Please like my videos and please tell others.